Hi, and welcome to another episode of the Brown Gunners podcast, where we'll be analysing our narrow 1-0 victory against the Merseyside Blues, courtesy of a Viktor Gyökeres. As always, I'm joined in the studio with none other than the man of reason, the man of rationale, and the main man himself, my co-host, Mosid. What are you saying, my brother? You good?
Yes, Zach. Not sure I'm the main man, but yeah, man. Or for that fact, a voice of reason. But hopefully, some balanced views is definitely what we're going to get today.
No better place to start than against this game, I guess. I think it was a really good game in terms of chances, in terms of control, dominance. And I think it's been quite a while since we played in a fashion where we just controlled and dominated the opposition. But yeah, how about your thoughts? What were your overall thoughts about this match?
Yeah, I mean, I thought obviously super happy to get the win. I know there's been a bit of discourse online slightly after the match about the way we performed and were we good enough, or people were expecting after a week break maybe we should be dominating the game completely.
Mhm.
Overall, I'm quite happy with the way we performed, and the way the lads got the result in the end. And yeah, generally, um, knew it was going to be a tough challenge, um, but City won. Regardless of that, we knew we had to win, and yeah, really happy we got the result we all wanted and needed.
Yeah, absolutely. I think at this point of the season, it's not about how you perform; it's just getting the results on the board and just keeping pace with Man City at the moment, and keeping that gap between the two sides. I think it's always a good feeling going into Christmas at the top. I think you don't want to be the one chasing. I think there will be a lot more emphasis, or around Man City in terms of them trying to claw us back rather than it being the other way around. Because if it was the other way around, I think people would be saying we've probably blown it already, because City will, once they got a gap, they're going to extend that gap a lot further, and there's going to be a lot more um I guess hyper analysis or micro analysis on Arsenal every time we drop points or the games are going our way. But anyways, that was a good overall initial feeling. But do you want to talk about pre-game thoughts? So yeah, what was your thoughts coming into the match? Was there any specific type of game that you were expecting against Everton, and was there a specific reaction you were kind of expecting from the team following last week's result and with a week's rest?
Yeah, that's kind of been the main narrative, hasn't it? Like the team has had a week rest, which is sort of the first time it feels like in ages. Are we all expecting us to be fully coherent, amazing in build up play? I'll be honest. Arteta almost set himself up for that after the Wolves game, didn't he? By saying in the post match there are certain well, I can't remember the word he used, but there are certain bad habits that can come about when you don't train as often as we have been because of the
Mm,
nature and frequency of the matches. So I took that as like, we're going to do more homework, mate. Don't worry about it, kind of thing.
absolutely.
So I was expecting us to sort of show some more intent or overall organization. Um, I know this is sort of a bit of a fast forward, but related to this is when we scored. I kind of, I, when we scored in this game, I really felt that the lads kind of tried to not do what we've done for the last few games away from home
Mm.
when we have scored, where we look a little bit shaky, we look a little bit vulnerable. So I put that as one of the sort of things Arteta needed to clean up with the team in the past week. When we score, do not drop the ball, do not muck about,
Yeah.
keep yourself switched on, as Rice said in the last game. I did feel that sort of in this game in particular. I think the other thing worth mentioning is Everton's form. Been quite up and down. They lost. They lost against Chelsea. I forgot what the result was. I think at least 2 or 3-0 or something like that. Um, they've had a few wins in their new stadium, but
Yeah.
then they did lose to Newcastle 4-1 at home,
Mm.
right? But I think Everton is almost like, I felt hard to know which version we're going to get from Moyes. When I think of Moyes and Arteta, right, I always sort of go back to this one game. I can't remember how many seasons ago it was, Zach, but when he was at West Ham, Like, he had Arteta's number, I remember, at the Emirates. Like, I think they might have
Mm,
won or maybe we drew. But I've kind of been semi-scarred from Moyes and Arteta since then. So I
mm,
was sort of a little bit nervous going into the game, um, not knowing exactly which face of Everton we're gonna see, them being at home. Um, and if Moyes did do his homework, did you see the interview from, I think, Sky against with Moyes? The lady literally just asked him, "So you're gonna sit back and have a low block? That seems to work
mhm.
well against Arsenal recently." It's like,
Yeah,
why are you chatting about all the secrets, you know?
I know.
His response was interesting, wasn't it? That's not what we plan to do. It's what Arsenal sometimes forces you to do.
Forces you to do, isn't it? Yeah.
But if you see us doing that, we won't be surprised. I was thinking,
Mm.
no, like, please don't sit
With a
back.
cheeky smirk, isn't it? Please don't. Yeah. You just knew you had the dirtiest game plan of just sticking it as a low block that was incoming in that game. So when it happened in the match, when we get to it as well, but when it did happen in the match, I was like, oh God, not again. Another game where we're having to, where the team sits deep and we're having to break that down. Do we have enough on on the pitch to, you know, industry in the pitch to actually break that down? But yeah, sorry to cut you off, but yeah,
Yeah,
that was
no,
my
I
point.
think maybe worth briefly touching on its 6 years anniversary for Arteta to the day.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you know, I think there's been a lot of reflections against for Arteta as a manager. I'm okay, like, just to sort of say, there's been lots of ups and downs for having him as a manager. I think once upon a time I was coming to a point where maybe thinking Arteta wasn't right for the man, but wholeheartedly over the course of a long period of time, you have to say this man has literally transformed the club. Super happy to have him as a manager, super grateful to have him as a manager. I don't give two craps about the narrative that you often see on media online, about, oh, is he right for man? He hasn't won anything, blah, blah, blah. Like, tell me another manager who has made such an impact on a club of this
Mm,
stature, of this magnitude. Um, and I think at this pace as well, yes, it's 6 years, but that is quick to make this kind
mm,
of a transition. Typically managers don't get that much time, as we all often know. I don't remember the exact stat, but I think Arteta is now like third longest serving manager in the Premier League, which is a bit crazy if you think about it. Like, he's still
yeah.
relatively a young manager, isn't he?
Mhm.
So
Yeah. And I totally agree. I think I can't fathom life without Arteta at Arsenal, if that makes sense. Like if you say who's if Arteta leaves right now, who's going to replace him? The only person I could actually like really think of is maybe Luis Enrique at PSG. Otherwise, there's no other real manager in world football right now that's got credentials to actually match up to what Arteta's done. I know people say, "Oh, well, we ain't no trophies, only won one FA Cup in whatever 6 years, whatever." But within that time, we've been challenging. We've been challenging a Pep team. We've been challenging a Klopp team. I mean, all of that with the squad that we assembled, and having it with one of the youngest teams as well to do it as well. Youngest ever manager, youngest ever team to do it. Um, and I generally think Arteta will be here for a long time. I think there was some discourse that kind of blog mentioned early in the week. I don't think it was the right timing to do it as well. Maybe during the Christmas period where there's like a bit of an interlull, maybe bring out that kind of that narrative. But he did mention that Arteta's never seen himself being at a club for too long, being a long-standing manager. So it was a bit that wasn't really a good vibe to hear going into this match, and it kind of made me think that, you know what, without Arteta, I think we wouldn't be in this position. We wouldn't be challenging. We wouldn't. He's provided that connection again between the club and the fans again. I think there was a big disconnect between the fans and the club. But as you can see, he's trying to improve. There's always been like training improvements. There've been nutrition improvements. There've been background staff before. And I remember when Arteta, I mean, when Wenger was about, he would be like, what's the sporting director? What does that sporting director do? Does he now does it show this person goes here, goes there? Does he direct traffic? What does he do? But Arteta's kind of influenced Josh Kroenke and the Kroenkes to actually, we need expertise around the club. We need to innovate and we need to do much more. Um, and so I think having Arteta at the helms, it's been fantastic, and long may it continue. And I hope he's here for a longer time than what the narrative is in the media, or what's been bandied about. But yeah, onto you actually had a point that you made, and I really do want to mention it. At one point, I think at only one point was I ever Arteta out, because I knew what he was doing was a good job, and that point was actually Everton away, and I think it was about 4 years ago, and I think they mentioned it or something where it was Damari Gray and was it Richarlison scored, and at that point I was like, oh flipping hell, man, like that was the point. I was like, "What is this team like? What is happening with the project?" But then came to my senses, just had a bit of a rational thought. And I came to the decision. I was like, you know what? He's doing his best. I think sometimes it's just the personnel and the immaturity from times gone before. So, um, definitely, yeah. I think that in terms of pre-games, that was really good. I think you mentioned something off camera about some pre-game thoughts. I'm not too sure. Was it something that happened on TNT Sports? I think that you mentioned. What do you want to go into that?
Yeah, some of you might have seen this. Like he's calling it the breakdown from Owen Hargreaves. He's doing this sort of media sort of campaign. It looks like from TNT Sports, and watching it, it's about 20 minutes long. 10 minutes with Marino and 10 minutes with Jurian Timber.
Hmm.
And the core purpose of it was he's analyzing, each of their games, how Marino's, moved into playing striker since last season, and Jurian's could have sort of like coming about as arguably the best right back in the league or Europe. I actually want to draw this analysis into the Gyökeres situation, right? It is a situation. And
Mhm.
what I mean by that is when he's in the segment with Marino, Marino's talking about his own personal reflections to do with since moving to a striker role, he didn't know that he was going to play striker
Mm.
um, that first game, whatever it was last season.
For Leicester,
Yeah, yeah.
Leicester away.
He didn't know he was going to play it, but he sort of one of the assistant coaches might have mentioned it in like a previous week coming up to the match with the injuries
Mm.
that we had. And Marino sort of explains to Hargreaves that, I was asking a lot of questions about positional play and what is expected of a striker. And
Mm.
because Hargreaves is almost just like yucking him up, sort of like, oh, you've performed really well. You're actually a very good striker, etc., etc. And he's probing Marino on that. The first point I want to draw from this is Marino clearly explains how it's up to the striker to create the angles. It's up to the
Mm.
striker and his movement and his awareness of the game in build-up play, knowing what are the patterns that are emerging from his team, knowing, Rice mentioned a few weeks ago, reference points from the opposition and your team themselves. When are they going to play that particular cross? I need to think 2 steps ahead as a striker and already know where the ball is going to be coming in. And so
Mm.
that's sort of from Mikel Marino's perspective of it's up to the striker to already be thinking ahead and almost create the angle of the ball is what I took from it. The second half of his segment was with Timber, as mentioned. And really weirdly, that same idea of crossing the ball in came up again. And Timber actually says something along the lines of, oh, I had a chat about this with the boss. And I said that as long as I put it into a general area, a dangerous area between the centre backs or that particular sort of low cross ball, that should be sufficient enough, or that's more of an efficient game plan to potentially score a goal. Timber argued it's much more harder to aim for a particular striker's head on the ball from across, as opposed to just generally outputting it in a dangerous area, or I'm going
Mm.
to aim for that particular area of the box, right? So what does that mean? It means you have Marino who's saying it's up to the striker. You've got Timber who's saying it's up to the person. I'm just going to cross it in general area. I'm not aiming for the striker.
Mm.
And so what I took from that is Arsenal are still figuring it out. Gyökeres is still figuring it out. They don't know whether to stick or twist. I'm not painting this as actually a negative point, to be perfectly honest with you, Zach, against Gyökeres. It's more of just an interesting observation from this insight that we've got in midweek from that interview, that it's still taking time. Now, are people expecting Arsenal and Gyökeres to have figured it out by now in we're about halfway through the season, roughly?
Mhm,
Like, would we have expected to figure it out by now? Probably. Are we angry that Gyökeres's performances have been up to par up until now? Probably, because
mhm,
but people often forget the context, right? And I know this has been mentioned many times previously. No one the plan wasn't to have Gyökeres start every game. He's had to do
mm,
that. The plan wasn't to have Mourinho play as many games as he has had to done, striker, and then rotating with Gyökeres. That wasn't the plan. So we're almost forced and pigeonholed into this position. And so I think that's kind of like one thought I've had going into this game, where if Gyökeres was starting, if Mourinho was starting, it kind of really does potentially dictate how we may play. But it's interesting to know, I think, just to finish off this point, that the players themselves have differing opinions. Maybe Arteta is suggesting to Timber to stick it on Gyökeres' head. Timber pushed back, you know, and it's interesting to know that um, an interesting point of analysis that we're still trying to figure.
yeah, no, I think that's a fantastic point that you made. And I think just you and I, and just like Timber and Gyökeres and Marino, they're figuring it out. They'll still that chemistry, and I know Arteta's always talking about chemistry, and the teammates need to find the player, and the player needs to also work towards working at angles for his teammates and stuff like that. So, um, yeah, I agree. So, in terms of team news, I guess, were you surprised that Gyökeres was starting ahead of Marino or anyone else? Like, for example, Jesus has just come back from injury as well, so he's had a few cameos here and there and showed that he can still like he hasn't missed a heartbeat, to be honest, being out for a whole year and maybe a year before that, so 2 years in total. Yeah, what were your thoughts about the lineup in itself?
Yeah, I thought I wasn't too surprised that Gyökeres was starting. To be honest with you, Zach, I wasn't like necessarily disappointed with it or the option we got. I mean, you mentioned Jesus. I thought he was quite good when he did come on in the second half.
Hmm.
Um, but no, I wasn't too sort of surprised with Gyökeres. Obviously, we've got Calafiori back, the back
Yeah,
four of Timber, Saliba, Hincapié, and Calafiori. We're arguing we should have done that in the last game, you know? But no, I think that was almost gonna write itself. Um, really happy for Trossard to start on the
hmm,
left. I think I've been singing his praises recently, and um, he's obviously fit enough to be starting the match. So I was really relieved to see that. Our bench looked ah, so good. Very
fantastic, fantastic.
yeah, super happy about that. What about yourself? Did you think anything much stood out?
To be honest, I think with the players available at our disposal, I think it was the best team we could actually put out, if that makes sense. So I think back four speaks for itself. I think those were the best people in their positions. Um, I knew that Odegaard would probably come in for Eze. To be honest with you, not surprised Eze on the bench. Sad to see his player of his caliber on the bench. Do you know what I mean? He's definitely a starter for 19 of the 20 clubs in this league, or at least 18 of them. Um, but obviously, you can't drop your captain for far too long. If you have your captain, he's going to start pretty much at all your matches. Um, and to be honest, he's been all right, to be honest, since he's come back, Martin Odegaard. So glad we had Calafiori back from his suspension against Wolves. And and I just love that he's just so random at times. You see him in the center forward position in this at the other, so he kind of creates havoc for the opposition. And I just think he's had such a stellar season so far. But in terms of the actual team selection, no surprises really there. Um, Happy that Gyökeres started. I think this was again another position where he can actually just stamp his mark on the team and just try and get that fluidity going in, and get a goal somehow and just build on that momentum. In terms of Everton, I think pre-game I did have a thought that I think there will be a very different Everton side. Um, a couple of the players are going to AFCON. You got Gana Gay, who's gone, and as well as I think the main man for them is Iliman Ndiaye. Whenever I've seen him, I'm like, wow, this is a off the street baller that I've ever seen in my life. For a very long time, actually, I won't say in my life. Um, but I think he's one of the catalysts for them going forward. Everyone talks about Jack Grealish and you know him coming back, but to be honest with you, I think the main man in attack for them is definitely Iliman Ndiaye. He gets them up the field. His trickery on the wing, he always causes problems for the opposition. So I knew without them two, as well as Shrewsbury Hall, he's missing as well. Through I think it was he got injured in the last match or something like that. But in terms of the way Everton set up, they're very fixated in terms of their 11. Doesn't really change much. So I think having noticeable absences for them, I think we were in better stead going into this game. And obviously, if you any team that doesn't have their best players is always going to be on the back foot from the get go. But we having some of our players back, especially those in attack, I thought we were going to be dominant from the get go. So yeah.
Shall we get into it then? Because I think something I noticed when the game did begin was that Everton were really not shy playing long balls. You know, I think kind of it's almost like a trick opposition teams have maybe realized or noticed since we had Mosquera and Nketiah
Mm,
playing. Obviously, a little bit different with Saliba back now, but they just kept lobbing the ball up, and it was really, really noticeable in the beginning.
hmm.
And bless him, it seemed like that was his only only strategy the whole game,
Literally.
basically. Um, but yeah, I think I noticed that quite a bit. We were dealing with it most of the time, I felt. Our
Mhm,
overall sort of build-up play looked like it was sort of what you'd expect with Calafiori back. You mentioned him bombing forward. We sort of revert to that sort of back three of Liba, Capier, and Timber, you know, sort of shielding the back and basically every other player up front and sort of ahead of them.
mhm.
And I felt quite happy about our overall build-up play. That's kind of this feeling I had in the beginning, right? In the first 15, 20 minutes is why I'm overall happy with our performance. Because we looked a lot more assured of ourselves and let's just say it, it's down to Saliba. Like you only need one of them back and look at how good we are overall build-up play and performance, don't you think?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I think we're definitely higher up on the pitch, if that makes sense. And like you said, I think within the opening 20 minutes, I think we were showing signs of how we usually play, and that's very controlled. And I think what is really important is that I know there was a lot of discourse online saying the game was a bit labored. Of course, I expected our speed to be a little bit more faster when we were attacking. I might be saying it's a lot of forward, backward, sideways passes. But I think when you go away to certain stadiums, there's an emphasis to not get the crowd going, if that makes sense. So, certain stadiums, I'll say Anfield is one of them, St. James's Park is one of them. I'd say Everton is one of them. Um, Maybe Leeds, where the crowd is overly emotional and the team is very influenced by the crowd. So I think one of the game plan going into this game was don't get the crowd going. Because once they get the crowd going and then they get loud and they get leery, then that might influence the team on the pitch as well as the referee potentially as well. Because the crowd's getting onto their back or they're getting onto their team to push on and et cetera and et cetera. So I think the type of game that we were playing, I think, was very well fashioned for this type of for this type of opposition. So I wasn't like you said, I wasn't really fussed with the way we were playing. I think we were fashioning chances. We're trying to make the angles for the pass. But I think what was maybe the problem was it wasn't coming centrally in that first half, if that made sense. A lot of the attack was going from the left hand side and going around to the right hand side. And if we couldn't make it from the right side, we go back to the left hand side, similar to what we were doing against Wolves. So I think that's kind of in part of having a midfield trio of Zubimendi, Odegaard, and Rice that you don't have that kind of central penetration. I've mentioned that last year a lot of the time, where I was crying out for someone like a Morgan Rogers, or a Eberiche Eze, someone to just just go in the middle. Don't worry, do a little dazzly dribble, and just do a bit of something that kind of breaks that low block. And I feel against low blocks, having that central penetration is always going to give you that advantage because you can't how do you defend against someone that's going to dribble straight through you? You can't, because you're going to have to double up, man up. Those zonal positions that you take up in a compact defensive block doesn't really work for something random, if that makes sense. But in terms of the game, I think it worked out pretty well. But it did take us about 20 minutes to fashion our first ever chance of the game, which is a bit long for us anyway. But yeah, it was a good little chance actually. It was weird. Kind of, did you find it weird seeing Saka on the left with Trossard combining? I found it a bit odd, but it kind of worked out, if that made sense.
I loved it. Zach, I thought this was amazing. Like, it's sort of
Mm,
giving that tactical diversity that
mm,
we all know, or everyone knows in the league, that Arsenal are very right side heavy because we
mhm,
rely a lot on Saka, and he's so efficient. Arteta's
mm,
like, "You're so good, just go help him out." You know?
mm.
So I was
Yeah,
really happy to see it because whenever he did move there, you kind of just felt like the opposition didn't really know how to handle it. Like, does the left back stay where he is positionally, or does
mm,
he move across? Or are they now tripling up because Saka and Trossard are there on the other side of the wing
yeah,
together? So I think that was really positive, and I liked it every time he did it, and he did it a few times, didn't he?
yeah. He did it quite a few times. And you know what? That is really interesting. It kind of popped into my mind when I saw Saka on the left hand side combining with Trossard. There was a piece where Henry was talking about when his time at Barcelona, and I think he came out of his position and he managed to score a goal. Pep came to him at halftime or something like that. He goes, even though he scored a goal, he goes, "You ever move away from that position, I'll take you off." So you see that kind of, as I know he's come from the school of Guardiola, Arteta, but could show that he has a bit of nuances. He gives his players a bit of freedom to do certain things when needed and when it's the right time. Um, but yeah, I think that chance, I think, fell. It was a low cross from Saka into the box, half cleared by into the path of Zubimendi, who kind of had his left footed high and wide. And I think from that point onwards, I think it was attack of Arsenal wave. I think that was the kind of catalyst that kind of got the team going. I think gave the confidence to say, you know what, we've got them pinned back. And then I think like a minute later or something, we had a nice chance from the right hand side, a cross from Odegaard into the box for Gyökeres. Wasn't particularly the best cross in the world, to be honest. It was a bit behind him. But Gyökeres did quite well to actually probably get it on target, not on target, but fashion it towards goal. But the warning signs were there for Everton that, you know what, we're kicking into gear now. Um, yeah, your thoughts on that? And then I think obviously a few minutes later you had the Gyökeres penalty shout. We worked it kind of well from the right hand side. I think Saka had it, slipped in Timber, who was in the box. That kind of ball, his cross kind of deflected over the goalkeeper right towards the far post. Penalty or not penalty? In real time, I thought it was a penalty. I was screaming at my screen saying that is stone wool. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I think in real time it did look like a bit of a shove, but to be honest with you, when they showed the reverse angle, when you could see sort of more of Gyökeres and the defender, I don't know if it was O'Brien or
Mm,
for me, it was just it was a non-event. Like, it was like a, nah, that's not really enough for a penalty. After seeing that replay, I was almost a bit surprised with the amount that Gyökeres was appealing for it. To be honest with you, and it was, slightly, say, embarrassing, but it was almost like, oh, come on, man, that wasn't that much of an appeal, was it? Like, that shouldn't really be given. Was my immediate thought, to be honest. So I
yeah.
wasn't expecting anything else.
I know it's weird because at the time I thought it was a penalty, and then I watched the replay on slow motion, like you mentioned, and then it didn't feel like it was enough in it to warrant a penalty. But then again, I watched just before for this pod, I just watched the highlights again, and I was like, oh god, it was a penalty. So it's maybe he was a bit theatrical because obviously you're in the penalty area, you're nudged from behind, even a little nudge can kind of put you off center. And the way it was kind of looping into his path, it was literally just going to be a real simple tap into the nod into the goal. Um, but then I think that's what you have to do as a striker. Harry Kane does it. He gets a little touch and he's diving headfirst like he's an Olympic swimmer, gold medalist. Um, but yeah, again, it was a bit frustrating at the time, but from the resulting corner, it didn't really matter at the end of the day because O'Brien does his, I don't know what he was doing. Can you break that down on what is a defender thinking? Because in my 32 years of actually playing the game, I don't think I've ever defended the corner with my hands in the
You know what's even more hilarious is when VAR gave it, he sort of the camera just cuts to him. And he's like, "What happened there?" Like,
Yeah.
how are you even, like, refuting this, mate? Like, the whole
Yeah.
stadium can see, and if they showed the replay, I don't know, but, like, 100% penalty. Like, there's no way even the ref standards in the UK or Premier League can get this wrong.
Yeah,
But
no.
yeah, it was like an amazing corner from Rice, consistent as ever.
Mm.
Um, maybe was it O'Brien? Was it him who did it? Like, was he
Was O'Brien,
shoved?
yeah.
I don't know if he was, like,
I don't
shoved in or, like, it's
So there were 2 people kind of challenging him at that point. So Calafiori was going up for the header, not touching him, and then Nketiah, obviously there's a big mismatch in terms of height and power and size of the 2 players. It kind of I don't think Nketiah does enough to even warrant him to even put his hands in the air. I'm not too sure what O'Brien is thinking at that point, but it's a lucky penalty, and I think it's something that we probably needed in that match. I don't think we were fashioning sort of chances, but I think we needed something to kind of just break the deadlock and break their kind of spirits, whatever they had at that point.
yeah, I think we were good value for money for the goal. You know,
100%.
I think we had done enough to sort of feel like we deserve it, in my view, anyway. But I think you know that was our first chance. The penalty was actually our first shot on target, wasn't it? But there
Mhm.
was a bit of a, we don't know, would you call it mind games from Odegaard?
Oh, 100%. I think he does this all the time. I think he will get the ball or one of the penalty take or the perceived penalty taker that is gonna take it, holds onto the ball, but then eventually gives it to the person that's actually gonna take the ball. So definitely mind games from the boys. I think it just probably makes it easier for um, the player who's gonna take it, that they're not having all the eyes on them holding the ball, and then gonna eventually put it down. It makes it less of a less precious some situation. So yeah, definitely mind games.
It was great, wasn't it? Someone actually asked Arteta about that post match, and Arteta sort of just shared that this wasn't really the plan. It wasn't discussed. The team and the captain just decided that at the time in the game, showing leadership, showing decision making. So he was just really
Do you think
happy.
so? Or do you reckon Mikel just like just saying it for the sake of saying it? We know he said it a few times that
Um,
some players are out for a while and then end up coming back at the next game. Mind games from the manager as well.
oh man, this is like reverse Uno upon reverse Uno. You know, I believed him. Call me naive, but I believed Arteta. To be honest with you, he didn't sort of dictate that, and that was
Mhm.
Odegaard. Well, we know Odegaard does that shielding thing, right? Sort of for Saka often is the
Yeah.
case, but you know, we did that, wasn't it, a few years ago with for Havertz when he was sort of in a dry spell. So
Mm.
I was really glad to see that happen for Gyökeres. We all know he needs it. What a pen!
We've seen it all on the comps before, but in his time in at Sporting, if it's one thing that he's really good at, it's absolutely rifling a penalty into the bottom corner or into the net. Yeah, talk me through it. What do you think of it?
Yeah, oh, it was amazing, wasn't it? It was just so assured, so confident. I think the Sky commentators, Alan Smith, was it him or maybe
Mhm.
his co-commentator said Gyökeres looked a bit nervous. I didn't think so. This is his bread
Mm.
and butter. You know,
Absolutely.
if he's not going to be fed in the ball, give him a chance at a penalty. I don't know his sort of success rate, but I had no doubts at all.
Mhm.
Honestly, Zach, like I feel so assured with
Assured.
him, and
Mm.
no surprises at all. Just surprised that sort of the net bulging as high as it did is almost like coming off the
Loved it. I thought it was
ground.
gonna go into orbit.
um, I think a few occasions after that, doesn't it? Saka sort of doing his free roaming, going on the left. Sort of that was the general
Mhm.
passages of play, wasn't it? Um,
Yeah.
before I think there was a fair bit of stoppages. There was a moment that sort of came to me where was interesting to me where Saliba sort of picks up the ball. He drives sort of somewhat forward. No one was really pressing him to his surprise.
Mm.
He sort of plays this sort of through ball into Gyökeres around the 40th minute or so on the right hand side. And I kind of just felt like this is what Gyökeres is used to. This is what he expects. This is what he wants. You
Mm.
know, like these sort of balls in where he's side by side with the defender, running with the ball. And so
Mm,
I thought there wasn't many of them, but I thought this was one of the rare occasions that it was good to see us sort of drawing upon his strengths. So it sort of that pattern emerged and we took advantage of it, sort of thing. Um, it didn't end up amounting to anything. Obviously, I think Gyökeres
mm,
tried to shoot. The defender sort of blocked it really well, which is a deflected shot. I
yeah,
think it might have just gone off for a corner or a goal kick. But I think
yeah.
other than that,
Did you reckon he took the chance well enough, or do you reckon his first touch was good, or do you reckon he? For me personally, I think he needs quite a few touches to get that shot off. Whereas another player, maybe if you're Haaland, they just need one chance to set themselves, and then the second action would be to just shoot it into the net. So I think he was just trying to maybe he took it too wide or he took it too long. Um, yeah, I don't know.
I didn't think his touch was bad in the sense of the angle he created, but I thought he needed a few too many touches to get to that angle, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Um, and I agree that he sort of tends to need a few touches to sort of, I don't know if it's getting sort of warmed up, but
Mm,
to sort of play his game. But yeah, I think that sort of it was a fair enough chance, and could always obviously it could have always done a bit better, but I wasn't too sort of disheartened about that.
mhm. Cool. I think that kind of concluded the half really. I think it was pure Arsenal dominance, not much from Everton to show for it. Um, no changes that in the second half. That was a good sign. Um, and then I think we fashioned our first chance in the 51st minute. I think it was good play from Saka on the right hand side. Kind of holds onto the ball while Timber makes a darting overlapping run on the wing, and then I think there was two things that Timber could have done there. He could have there was Gyökeres in the middle waiting for a tap in if he got the angle or the pass right, but he opted for the second option, which was to hit it back to Saka, who was approaching in the box, who had acres of space, by the way. I'm surprised he didn't take it on his left. He went straight for the right hand sweep. Wasn't much of a effort, I guess. Didn't have much power or direction or pace to it. He just kind of just trying to hit it on target and see if it can go into the net. But good chance there. What are your thoughts on that one?
There's a bit of discussion about this online, isn't there? I've been sort of prowling the pages of Gunner's Reddit online, and
Mm,
some people are saying the pullback to Saka was the right choice. Others saying Gyökeres is free for an easy tap in.
mm,
I'm on the sort of the side of the latter point where I feel like despite Saka being in acres of space, there's more pressure on the ball from Timber has to be perfect for it to be in Saka's stride. Saka takes it really well, and that's just credit to him using it on his
mm,
right. I think if he tries to take it on his left, again, he might have ended up scoring. But I think there's more to think about from the pullback to Saka, um, as opposed to, in my view, if he sort of just plays it along the floor, it's a straight ball,
mm,
really. Um,
mm,
and Gyökeres has got to tap in. I don't say that in a way where we need Gyökeres to get more goals. Like, yeah, we do, but
mm,
that was his chance. I think it's more of a
mm.
case of like whoever the hell the striker is. Like, in my
He made
opinion,
the right run.
yeah, and you're not going to the striker, whoever it is in that position, wouldn't have a better opportunity positionally to score.
Hmm.
Any striker would have done the same thing Gyökeres did in that position, and I think it's just about decision making. Um, I don't think it was the wrong choice. It's just I think it might have been the better option to choose Gyökeres there.
Hmm.
But yeah, we got another shot on target, which I think was positive, wasn't it? Um,
Yeah.
and I think soon after that, they're appealing for a penalty, aren't they?
Yeah, I think so. It was kind of like 2 minutes of madness where Everton were just kind of on top in terms of again it's Arsenal creating problems for themselves, doesn't it? Isn't it? Um, you have the Saliba kind of don't know what he was thinking. He had tried to play a pass into the middle. It was kind of intercepted and kind of finds itself to Barry up front. Zubimendi is literally scrambling for his life backwards and kind of makes some sort of a challenge. I don't know if he touched him. It looked like he shoved him or touched him, but on the replay, I don't know even know if he did touch him or not. Um, yeah, what did you think make of that one?
It looked like he did. It looked like he did touch him, and it was a bit of a shove. And I think the way the commentators anyway explained it was because the ref didn't really give a foul, then it's ref's call. Like it wasn't clear and obvious
I've
error, something like that.
Okay. But it's
Um,
a bit odd because I don't know. In that moment, I was like, "Oh, he's at least done a foul, right?"
I thought it was. I was a bit surprised it wasn't given at least as a foul because I think upon a few replays you could see it was outside the box still.
Yeah, and
So
he didn't get nowhere near the ball. I mean, nowhere near the ball. So I don't know what the have we broken the PGMO curse? Are we actually the favorite ones now? Because there was a few incidents in this game where I was like, "Okay, ref, that's a bit lenient."
having said that, right, the refs, being lenient. How many times is Arsenal gonna be the only ones who get a yellow for delaying the restart? Honestly,
Very
man,
true.
it pisses me off. Yeah. I
Mm,
think Martinelli got one when he came on. Gyökeres got one, sort of similar place in the pitch for Rice's ridiculous one last season. Last season? Yeah, last season? Yeah.
yeah. Oh, in this game, those two incidents. Yeah, I think the both of them got yellow cards for kicking the ball away for some reason or delaying the restart. Yeah.
Honestly, Zach, like I don't watch like full games for other teams that often. I just watch mainly highlights. But it's something everyone does. No one gets
Mm,
carded but us, like or that's what it feels
mm.
like anyway, like, I'm gonna victimize as an Arsenal fan, I'm gonna continue victimizing ourselves, and I will still do it because that's what I feel, boy, like, and it just pisses me right off. Um, but they had that VAR sort of potential chance and then slightly bigger chance for a VAR shot from
Oh.
against Saliba.
Ah, at that point, heart in mouth. At that point, I was like, "It's a pen." And at that point, I was like, How are we gonna get the winner again from this situation? We're pegged back again." But for some reasons, the Lord listened to us and was like, "You know what? Ref carry on with his leniency." And he said, "No foul, no pen." VAR said, "No pen." Your thoughts? Were you happy with that decision? Were you surprised by the decision? Or did you feel vindicated? Like, you know what? We need a bit of lady luck on our side sometimes.
Good point. In fact, we need a bit of a stroke of the luck. With we certainly haven't been getting any of that with the injury. So on the balance of that, maybe. But
Mm,
I was really relieved. I thought that was going to be a pen. Normally, you can sort of tell with like the way the ref's looking, holding his mic and everything. Um, I was quite surprised, and I think we really got away with it.
you
You
reckon?
could say that maybe Saliba and Barry sort of lift their legs at the same time, so that the time to react
Yeah.
is almost impossible for Saliba to get out of the way. But how many
Mm,
times have we heard VAR say it was a clumsy challenge, penalty?
yeah.
It was clumsy by the
Yeah.
defender. He shouldn't have done that. How many times have we heard and seen that? So even though you wouldn't want to see those kind of like challenges or potential decisions be given as a pen, I still think we were very lucky for that not to.
Yeah. And I kind of agree with that sentiment. And it's really interesting. At the point of contact, I was like, I don't know why I always feel victim. I feel like we have the victim mentality as Arsenal fans. We do have it as well because we've got a whole book of evidence that we can go back to and say that happened to us. So when that thing happened, I was like, Jesus, Jesus against Villa. The same thing happened against us when we needed a penalty. We needed to win that game, and it said no penalty. So at that point, I was like, you know what? Maybe that is the right call. Maybe those decisions or those type of fouls shouldn't be penalized. Um, but although I do feel like though they should be penalized, those sort of challenges, you're late, catch the man, it should be a penalty. But because of the state of PGML and then what's happening to us, I was like, you know what? That's the rules. Then that's the interpretation of the rules, because we've got evidence to say that this thing happened against us before, and it's happened before in the past, and there was no penalty. So for me, I was like, oh, that's it. Well done, great. We got away with one, but the rules have changed, and those sort of challenges again probably just a bit clumsy and not enough for the opponent to go down to get a penalty there.
It's funny, isn't it? Like we sort of get away with this penalty decision potentially, and we go up the other end in the next sort of 10 minutes. We hit the post twice, don't we?
Yeah.
It's sort of really. we'd be really ruining these chances if it wasn't for the penalty we scored. But
Hmm.
I really felt this next phase, we responded well to these potential decisions that have gone our way. I thought that we were the only real team for the remainder of the second half who felt like we were actually sort of trying to amass any real attack. Um,
Mm.
so I really love this next play where sort of we play the ball out, we get out of their press really well because they were pressing quite high and they were quite intense for the sort of beginning of the second half. But we get out of their press really well. Some of the balls Raya played out, by the way,
He
really
was sensational.
so
Mm.
good. And we sort of work it out. It's almost felt like when you get out of press, it feels like a counter attack all of a sudden, doesn't it?
Hmm.
Um, and so we sort of work it to the right wing for Saka. I can't remember who exactly crosses the ball in, but I think like Rice sort of drives it into the midfield and then plays it to the left where like, here you go, son, like on a play.
On a play,
Here's your
yeah.
dinner. Eat it up, please. Um,
Hmm.
Trossard, I think he does as good as he can. He hits it well. I think it's just not sort of obviously not on target. Um, Disappointed for that, obviously not to have gone in. But when you see us hit the post again, sort of 10 minutes later, you're thinking, all right, it might be one of those games where we're gonna have to bit of
Hold out for a win,
squeak,
1-0 win.
squeaky bum time and all that, right?
Yeah, I know. Um, and I totally agree. I mean, going back to the Trossard chance, I think Rice does extremely well to delay the pass enough. So
Yep.
I think Trossard wasn't even in the frame at that moment, and then he managed to angle himself to get into a better goal scoring opportunity. I think what Trossard doesn't do well is orientate his body enough to get enough bend on it. So it kind of just goes a bit more straight and has a little curl towards the end, but it kind of hits the post. I think he potentially could have gone low and hard, like a typical Martinelli type of finish, low and hard, an Henri type of finish. But he decided to kind of lift it, and I think obviously that makes it a little bit harder to get that on target as well. But obviously looks a lot more aesthetically pleasing when it goes in high. Um, and then the Zubi chance was, I guess, a decent enough chance at the edge of the box or inside the box. Hits the post, and we don't really make anything of it. But it was encouraging that we're actually creating chances at that point in time. Games gone before, where even the Bulls game, where we didn't really create much chances, if that makes sense. We weren't really penetrating enough. But at least we were actually getting a shot away that was clean enough to be on target, if that makes sense, and trying to create a bit of danger for the goalkeeper to actually make a save. And that was something that was quite encouraging in that respect. So, um, but I did feel, I think at the 80th minute, I think the Trossard chance should have been 2-0 game done. But with 80 minutes to go, I was like, I don't know, I feel a bit nervous. I think there was a combination of, 1-0 up, anything could happen. And then, especially with the previous league games, we've drawn against Sunderland late on, we lost against Villa late on, we just about won against Wolves late on. Um, and I think there was a combination of like, I think it was the ball was going back to Raya a lot. And then instead of just clearing it, going up front, he was like kind of holding the ball, stepping on the ball, passing it to Saliba, Hincapié. There was one effort where Raya was trying to give it to Hincapié, but it was kind of a bit off, and it went on for a throw in. And you know how everyone in the league's trying to copy us now, doing the long throw ins, and now as well. I think Leeds scored about 2 or 3 yesterday from long throws. So
Yeah.
that was always a bit of in the back of my mind, like, oh God, are we going to hold out? Do we have the right substitutions coming on? Are we going to defend deep again? But I'm glad that the team learned their lesson from the other games, and we kind of continued in the same shape that we were playing, and we continued trying to attack and trying to go forward. And we kind of camped in their half, if that makes sense. There was time where Jesus, I think Calafiori and Rice were in the left-hand corner doing little Chiravellas to one another. So obviously counting down the clock. But what was really important that in both halves, I think in 10 minute spells towards the end of the game, I think in the first half it was 70 to 30% possession to us, and in the last 10 minutes of the second half was 80-20 possession to us. So I'm really happy with that we controlled the game with possession and we created enough chances that we did. Um, yeah, those are all my kind of caveating thoughts. I don't think much happened towards the end of the game apart from us just kind of continuing as we had in the rest of the game.
Yeah, no, I think we definitely controlled the game a lot better in the second half than the first half. I think we weathered the storm that Everton was inevitably going to bring when the second half kicked off. I mentioned it a bit earlier, but I think we actually looked at it a bit better with when Jesus did come on, whenever that was,
Mhm.
60th, 70th minute, whatever. You could see that he was already swapping with Martinelli, as they used to
Mm,
do back in the day. A bit of a throwback, wasn't it? Um,
yeah,
so I think we sort of just looked a bit more
natural.
natural, more Artetable, I was going to say, if that makes sense.
Mm, yeah.
Um, I just really want to just give flowers to Saka once again. Like he was so
Mm.
sharp this game, so sharp. Um, Even right up to the sort of 90th minute plus, through balls, crosses, corners, everything was just perfectly delivered, um, perfectly executed. The timings was all spot on, and I was just so happy and relieved we have a player like Bukayo Saka, that we
Honestly,
could
star boy.
rely on him.
Mm.
His shoulders just carrying us to a degree. But no, honestly, nothing really else sort of stood out for me for the remainder of the half. Just overall, sort of really happy with the performance. I checked this was our first win away in the Premier League since our 2-0 win against Burnley, which was November,
Before,
beginning of November.
before is that before the international break? I think
I
potentially.
think it was. So it's been a while, and I think
Wow.
I think that perspective is really important for people to understand and realize how massive a result this is. It's been a long time since we're away from home, and we're still top of the league. We are doing really well. I think in my monologue in the beginning, as I sort of briefly mentioned as well about the idea of when we do concede, we've looked shaky. So sort of like Arteta's rectifying, he's refining these little things.
Mm,
The mentality, the culture of the team and the players when sort of as the game is playing out. Um, I think that and the combination of Everton lacking equal or any amount of sharpness in attack as well is why we've come away with the points. We mentioned we've got a bit of luck from the decisions that could have gone very easily gone away, on not gone
mm.
our way. Um, and I think this will be a very different pod if we didn't win this game.
I don't know. It would be. I think we'll be second, and Man City was sorry, not Man United, God forbid. Man City would be ahead of us. But I think yeah, you're very right in terms of how the narrative would be completely different if we had lost this game. I think it would be a lot of backlash, a lot of skepticism, a lot of I know maybe people might have given up if we had lost this and no, it's Man City would have overtaken us. But still, it's still long in the season to go. We're still probably just halfway through, and there's a lot of points still to win and lose at the same time. Um, you mentioned Bukayo Saka. I also want to give. I know you said you want to give him some flowers, but if it's anything to go by, I would like to give a bouquet of flowers, a garden of flowers, a forest to Declan Rice because I think that was a midfield masterclass, dominant overall defensive and attacking play. I think I've mentioned to my inner circle many times before that Rice is the unofficial official captain of this football club. I think I know if Odegaard was to leave tomorrow, I think Declan would get the armband without a shadow of a doubt. I remember when we signed him, I thought, yeah, he can play six, but we've seen him at West Ham doing so much more than just being a sitting deep line playmaker or a sitting someone that just breaks up the play and as some people call Caicedo a shin kicker. He's definitely not one of those. I think he can do everything from attacking to defending to crosses to free kicks. We've seen against Real Madrid. We've seen those corners week in week out, consistency. We've seen him break up play. We've seen him even attack, taking it from our half, driving into the opposition half. This is a sort of midfielder you kind of anchor your whole team around. He is the modern day Stevie G. And I know people say, oh, Stevie G, legend, this, that, the other, but name me another midfielder like him in world football right now. I don't think there's many. I generally can't think about that. Um, this game alone, nine possession recoveries, 3 clearances, 5 duels won. And that's not to mention what he did offensively, especially setting up that chance for Trossard. I think he's really becoming into his own, and especially I think he takes a little while at the beginning of the season to get going, but once he gets going, my God, is he a diesel engine? Literally, yeah. Go on, sorry. I'll stop there for now.
No, sorry to cut you off, Zach. I think why Rice works so well is because he's a very Arteta player. Do you remember
Mm,
in the early few seasons with Arteta, there was this whole thing with Maitland-Niles and
mhm,
how sort of like, is he a right back, full back? Is he he prefers to play in centre midfield. Randomly,
mhm,
if we're winning the game, he'll put him on the wing up front sometimes, like
mm,
to sort of double up and the assurances on sort of the right hand side sometimes. In that same principle, Arteta has shown that he loves midfielders who can fulfill more than one role. Mikel Marino, he like
mm.
whatever the hell you want to call him. What did Arteta call him? Defensive nine,
Most
something
yeah,
like
that's
that.
mine. Yeah,
Whatever the hell that is. Put that in FIFA, innit?
yeah,
Like uh, like that's why I think Rice is sort of Arteta's seen the potential that Rice can bring, does bring, can continue to bring. And I
mm,
think that's why it's just worked so well. And it's just we're seeing him blossom in his like peak of his years potentially of this like amazing footballer, like elite world class midfielder, one of
mm.
a kind, like you said. So grateful. Didn't
So grateful.
Moyes just give him a little chocolate coin, Christmas chocolate coin at the end? Rice is the best player in the world.
Of the
So,
world, and he's not wrong. He's not wrong there at all. Obviously, a bit of bias is probably potentially there, having worked with him at West Ham for so long as well.
like his dad.
Um, Literally in it. But there's so many players that have said, Rice is probably one of the best in the world. Um, and I have to agree with that. To be honest with you, there's nothing he can't do. Is what I'm trying to say. So happy to have him. Just feel like obviously if he's not in the lineup, you feel a little bit like, oh, there's a bit of insecurity. Similar vein to Saliba or Gabriel, when they're not in the back line, you feel a bit of nervousness and stuff like that. But when you have them all in the lineup, you feel so assured, and having that spine really makes a difference. So, yeah, kudos for this performance. I was a lot happier with how we performed, and we just need to build upon that consistency and just finishing teams off when we know we smell danger. I mean, when we smell a bit of blood in terms of killing them off. So, yeah, I think, yeah,
You meant
long may that continue.
you mentioned consistency, and maybe that's a good segue into sort of would you play Rice? Would you play Saliba in our next game in the EFL Cup in a few days time, or are you thinking we completely shift and play all the players who didn't play today for yesterday, for example, like Madueke? Does Jesus start the game? Is that sort of the approach Arteta should take? Do you think?
Yeah, personally, I would like him to make rounds of changes just to keep it fresh. I think the league is more important than a Carabao Cup, and no one's going to care about us, even if we win a Carabao Cup at the end of the season, but we bottled the league. So I think the main takeaway is keep those players who require some minutes to get them going. I think we have enough in Norgard. Eze can play in there, and Marino. That's a good enough midfield to beat Palace, who I think they play away a two-legged tie in the is it Europa League or something? I can't remember exactly where they're playing against. Um, but they all need to be having some fresh changes. They've just lost against Leeds as well, so I think we can afford to play certain players. Obviously, Madueke instead of Saka, he had fantastic 2 goals against Club Brugge. He never got any minutes in the last, I think, couple games as well. So he's been an unused sub. Gyökeres potentially keep him going. Maybe put Martinelli on the left, um, or do you carry? I don't know, man. It's a strange one because at the same time you could want Jesus to start, but at the same time you could also want Gyökeres to get some nice enough goals to get him going. But maybe this is a game for Jesus because he loves scoring against Palace. I think that's what he does best. I think he did the same thing last year at the Emirates as well. So he'll probably be itching to play this match. So yeah, I think rounds of changes, but obviously in the backline, not going to be much in terms of what we can change. The only defender we had available in this match was MLS, and the rest of it was quite unconventional. We only had, yeah, one defender for the very first time. We're so used to having 3, 4 left backs in on the bench usually, but that just shows our strength in depth. But yeah, your thoughts?
Yeah.
Would you switch it up a bit, or do you agree with just?
Yeah, it looks like we haven't got much options in defense. We know we're not getting White back for a while. we probably will have to still rely on the likes of Timber, Saliba, and Hincapié. I'm not expecting them not to start. At most, it might be a Calafiori swap for Miles. So does that then mean he puts Norgard into midfield? I would do that personally. I wouldn't muck around with the defense anymore with Saliba back. Like I know he did Norgard in against in Europe against Club Brugge, I think it was. But I personally wouldn't
Worked
do.
pretty well.
It did. It did. I think, like, yeah, my feeling right now is just I wouldn't do that because it's like unnecessary instability. Saliba, it's not like he needs rest. Like he needs to play. He is if him and Gabriel were playing, they'd both be playing every game. So why is it any different because Big Gab is not there, right? So Saliba's starting, and if he's starting, for me, that means Norgard starting in midfield or should start in midfield. I want to see Zubi, Rice, and Saka as a minimum getting some rest if possible. If we had the option, I would rest Timber as well, but it looks like we might not have a choice there. I think if at least those players get some rest, I think with good rotation, we had a lot of luck in this game against Everton. If we continue to get some luck with getting results, please no more injuries, then I think that will hopefully be the right way to approach and strategize for our next game, who we have against. I've actually forgot who we got in the Premier League.
Yeah, I know. Let's have a look.
Brighton at home next Saturday.
Okay.
Brighton,
Not bad.
who I think are similar to Everton in a mixed vein of form from memory. They're not exactly firing as good as they have done last season. So yeah, but we're gonna have to be on it. We're at home again. I think I quickly checked before we hit record on the pod as well. From next week, we have a spell of 3 weeks back to back until about mid-January, where we're again playing 3 to 4 games. Playing every 3 to 4 days. So that's why I'm sort of feeling my sentiment is rotate well, don't pick up any more injuries. These games we've had this 1 week sort of not break but gap, so we're gonna have to be back on it again. And I think if we can, as I might have said this in the sport, but if we can get to end of the month still top of the table, then yeah, it's going to be super good coming into January where we hopefully get Havertz back. I'm not sure. I think Big Gabby's supposed to be end of this month, right?
Yeah, someone mentioned that maybe end of this month. But then it could be next month as well. I think there's so many conflicting stories going about or news articles. So one person, if you believe Hand of Arsenal on Twitter, then you might think it's coming back at the end of December. And then if you listen to Isan Khan, I think it's Khan on, I think from the BBC, I'm not too sure, but he mentioned something about mid-January. So depends who you listen to and who you take your choose from. It will depend, but we'll see. There's not much left of the month to go. Christmas is coming. Hopefully we can continue on our winning spell, and yeah, I think it's been a good end to the game. I think that's it for now, unless you've got anything else to say.
Nope. I think that's it. I think really happy with the result and looking forward to hopefully another win against midweek.
That's it. Come on, you Gunners. Let's go. See you, everyone.
Take care.
Goodbye. Take care.